Geez, we're racing. I don't know what I sound like, but I don't sound very good. Racing through the afternoon, folks. It's 2:48. It's nearly Friday afternoon, knock-off time, can't believe it. Rowie and Cornsey will be here with you at 4 o'clock, so stay tuned for that. Now, we've had quite a busy afternoon, and the fun isn't ending anytime soon, because we have got this really, really inventive guy in the studio by the name of Peter Kuhlmann. And Peter, I think it's fair to say, has been talking to me via email for a couple of years now, haven't you, Peter?
Yeah, a couple of years, Lainey.
And he has got this amazing idea, or this invention that he's about to talk to you about. But I also want Peter to share this idea, or not the idea, but the concept of turning an idea into a reality as well, because you're a guy that 5 years ago had an idea, and now you're looking at selling these mini pallets all around the world and across Australia, aren't you, Peter?
Yeah, it's the only type of thing in the world.
Okay, so let's start from the beginning so people sort of get a picture in their heads of, first of all, the mini pallets and then the garden pallets, which have just gone on sale.
All right, well, what it is, it's basically a small pallet. If you can imagine a carton of beer and...
most people can. Most of the blokes.
Or a carton of wine. And what it is, it's a small pallet that fits underneath a carton of beer or something similar to that size. It can be larger. And then when you want to move it, all you do is slip a hand truck, a standard hand truck underneath, and wheel it off. If you've got a stack of cartons or drums or whatever, you don't have to lean them to try and get the hand truck underneath. It just slides underneath and wheels off.
So sack trolley hand truck,
yeah,
is that the same thing?
Yeah, standard sack truck or hand truck or whatever. Yeah, there's different names for them, but they're basically the same.
Okay, so you actually never have to bend over to pick anything up?
No, you don't. Once it's on the pallet, you never have to lift it again or bend over to pick it up, and you can move it. For an example, if you bring stuff home from the garden shop, fertiliser or whatever, you've got to lift it once to get it out of your boot. But if you drop it onto a pallet, and that can be tiles for that you get if you're retiling anything that's heavy, you drop it straight onto the pallet and then just wheel it away with a hand truck, and you can wheel it anywhere you like. Keep stuff off the ground, doesn't get wet.
And it doesn't have to be, it can be bigger than the actual mini pallet as well, can't it? Like the box can actually be wider than it.
Oh, yeah, a lot wider. You can, say, if you wanted to move timber as an example, and your timber could be 4 metres long, and as long as it sits on the mini pallet, in the middle of the timber, you can just wheel it off. So you can have 3 or 4 metres hanging out each side of the pallet. Yeah.
Because, I mean, we all know the big wooden pallets that bricks come on, for example, and things like that. Why did no one think of this before, Peter?
Well, I don't know. I would have been asked 1,000 times. I'd say, why didn't I think of that, or why hasn't anybody done it before? And when I first thought about the idea, I went on the web and I was amazed, absolutely staggered, that nobody had produced anywhere in the world. Yeah.
Now, we'll talk about how you actually went about it in a second, but tell us why. It was only like 5 years ago, wasn't it, that you actually came up with the idea?
Yep. Well, it all came about by accident. I was helping a friend of mine move wine cartons in a pub at Whyalla. And this guy had moved probably 10,000 cartons in his life, and so he was used to it. He wasn't an amateur, and he hurt his back. And it was pretty serious. It looked very funny at the time, but it wasn't. It was fairly serious. And
I bet he didn't think it looked funny at the time.
Well, he didn't. But, that really didn't ring a bell. And then about 4 days later, I picked up a carton of wine, and the bottom was wet, and the bottom just fell out. So, after a few reds one night, I thought about it and came up with the idea of the little pallet. I'd had a little bit of experience in material handling before, and it was a logical step to build a small pallet. Basically, it's the same as a big pallet that you use with forklifts, only this is a small one you use with a hand truck. Yeah,
so anyone can use it in their home, or do people use it in offices? Do you actually, because the mini pallets have been on sale for a while now, haven't they?
Yeah,
they've been in the market for a while?
About 4 years.
Okay, and how do they go?
We've sold about 60,000, but it's been pretty hard work because I was always short of money once you develop something, and the tooling costs were enormous, and I never really had the money to to do a real big publicity campaign, and then gradually we'd start to sell a few more by door knocking. We sold them to councils, hospitals, libraries, accountants to move their paper in and out, manufacturers, printers, a whole range of people. Anybody who's got a hand truck or should have one can use a mini pallet.
I can imagine like legal services, you know, all those boxes they have of documents and stuff. Be perfect.
Well, a lot of the documents they put in the archives and store them for ages and ages. They can get, well, some of them can get wet. That's not normally a problem, but quite often they'll need to be moved and stuff will need to be moved around them to get to other files. And if you've got to lift, say, 6 boxes of files 4 times, it's a bit of a waste. If they're on mini pallets, you just slide them in and out.
How many, like, say you've got a standard, you know, reflex box of paper, how many of those could you have on one mini pallet?
Well, they'll take 180 kilograms, so that's probably about 6 or 7 pallets, 6 or 7 cartons.
Wow.
But that gets very high. It becomes unstable. So
don't try that at home.
No, but if you've got light stuff that is not unstable, you can, go as high as you like. But it really fits in whatever hand truck you've got.
Do you actually sell interstate as well? Like, have you been able to employ people?
No, we've done a couple of things to try and get it off the ground. We appointed agents, and some of those were successful and some weren't. We've got a couple of agents for the mini pallets around Australia, and they do reasonably well, but normally the people we appoint and have to appoint have got a lot of other products, so the mini pallet's only one item compared, they're selling one. The mini pallets is only one out of possibly 600-700 items.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. So if people buy them, they'll sell them, but they don't go out and door knock like I did.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, their heart isn't quite in it like the owner, I suppose. What did you do in a past life, Peter?
Well, I was in transport engineering for many years. I worked for a company called Gitcham Transport Engineers, and I looked after all their material handling equipment. Now, I haven't got any qualifications in that area, no engineering qualifications, but I've probably got a knack that I can go somewhere and see a problem and then pass it on to the engineer. So it's really an experience thing. That's all I've got to get to this stage.
Yeah. So how did you actually turn this great idea that you had, and you went online and saw that there was nothing sort of like it? What steps do you go through then to actually have a product in your hand that you can take, and door knock with and try and sell? Well,
it's extremely difficult, and it's a long path. First of all, I built some wooden pallets to make sure they worked. And then I went to an engineering company or a plastic manufacturer, and I happened to strike a very good guy from a company called Quality Plastics at Wingfield.
You just looked in the yellow pages for I wouldn't even know how to do that. I'd sort of go, oh, come on, how do I find a plastics, person?
Well, I went, and fortunately, the guy that I struck down there was we related very well, and I told him what I wanted, and he basically steered me into the right direction to find an engineer that would design it, and then things went from there. Had a bit of trouble with the engineer because I told him what I wanted, and then he came back with something completely different. And he didn't listen to me, charged me for it, and anyhow, we had a few words, and then he came back, and he came back with what I'd originally said, only basically in a design form. Yeah,
I can imagine it would sort of just be like banging your head against a brick wall for a while when you're trying, when you've got your own idea.
Well, it is, and you never really know the steps you take. You never know whether you're on the right track or not, because. And it all takes time. Like the engineer took 3 months to design it. It's probably only a 3-day job, but he took 3 months.
And money coming out of your wallet all the time.
Yeah. So you waste so much time.
Yeah.
And then when we knew the design was right, the tooling had to be manufactured.
Yeah.
That's
It's fascinating. We're going to come back after the news talking to Peter because he has got these amazing garden pallets that anybody with a large plant pot in the backyard absolutely needs. It's 3:07. Talking to Peter Kuhlmann. He is the inventor of mini pallets and now these amazing garden pallets that we're about to talk about. But give us a ring, 8223 0000, if you've got a great invention, because Peter's been there, done that in the last 5 years. He's had to find an engineer to create his pallets. He's tried to get government funding. He's had to, find agents, door knock himself to actually sell his product. So give us a call if you have a fabulous idea that you want to turn into reality as well, and maybe the wise man will give you some advice. Now, so amongst everything you've been doing with the mini pallets, something clicked in that wonderful brain of yours, Peter, and you thought, we can do this with garden pots. Well,
we've got a lot of pot plants at home, and we were putting the round big pot plants, garden pots, onto the square or the oblong mini pallets, and they just didn't look right. You'd have a bit of plastic sticking out each end. So I designed a round one that in most cases is hidden by the pot plant itself, and you put the pot on that. That's one thing. It keeps the pots off the ground. You can hose underneath and everything else.
They sit about an inch off the ground, don't they?
Yeah, about an inch off the ground.
And how wide are they?
They're 300 mil.
Okay, about the size of a wooden ruler that we all had at school.
Yeah, about that size. Now, you can put a big pot plant on. It doesn't have to be 300 or whatever. It can be a lot bigger. It can be a bit smaller, but small pot plants are not normally a problem. So I designed this, but then there was a thing, how do you move them? Because a normal hand truck won't normally fit on this garden pallet. So we designed a special hand truck that folds down, or hand cart, that slides underneath. It's narrow and it's got a very long tongue. So if you've got a big pot plant with a lot of foliage on it, it means that you can push the hand truck under, but you don't get the foliage all over your head, and you don't have to lean across and try and pull it on a normal hand truck.
And you don't break your back.
And you don't break your back, and you don't get bad-tempered, and you don't smack
and
your
you don't
fingers.
Get really angry with your husband because he's broken another one of the plants that you've been growing for 5 years.
Yeah, and he doesn't get angry at you because he wants to do something else when you want the pots moved.
Yeah, you can do it yourself.
Yeah, and then we took it another step. We designed this very simple rod handle, and all you do is slide the handle underneath the pot pallet, the garden pallet, and you can drag the pot plant around wherever you want, over concrete, tiles, wooden floors, anywhere, gravel.
And that's basically just a piece of wire that loops up, so it's like a handle.
That's about all it is. Well, it's a 3/8 rod, galvanised rod, and fairly cheap, so you don't have to buy a hand truck. And for example, you could use it on patios if you want to move your pots from one end of the patio to the other, or on a veranda on a high-rise building. Just slide it underneath and drag your pot to where you want it to go. If you want to completely clean underneath it, you just drag it aside a bit and do that.
I think it's just a fantastic South Australian invention, Peter. I really think it's bloody fabulous, and I've actually got a couple of these at home. And for pot plants, that are really big and cumbersome, particularly by the time you get soil in them, it's actually quite dangerous to be moving them and lifting them. And with two of you, it can be really difficult. But if you can just use your little wire thingy to slide in underneath and move them around, bingo. So you've actually had quite a lot of interest in these particular products now, haven't you?
Oh yes, we're starting to get a lot of interest now. We're in the Sydney Gardening Show next Friday in Sydney, and they've got 40,000 people that go through there in 3 days. But the advanced publicity, we've had journalists and from the show itself ringing us up to get stories, because it's unique. It's a new product, and they're very keen to have something very special, Australia-made, first in the show.
Are they made in Australia?
Oh yeah, they're made in Australia, and hopefully they always will be. We believe we can make them as cheap in Australia as what we can from overseas. They're only a small item, but bringing them in from overseas, the freight will be exorbitant. So we make them here, Australian product, keep people employed, and
I can imagine they'd actually do really well in some European countries and that as well, where they only have like the small backyards, so they don't necessarily have the big trees and that. So they have little trees in pots.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like big pots and Yeah, so have you had any interest from overseas, or is that a market that you haven't explored yet?
Well, we're starting to now.
And can I just ask, are you like the inventor, the advertising guru, the marketing manager, the HR boss? Are you all of those things?
I was.
Yeah.
It's changed a bit. Fortunately, I've been able to take on a partner. I've got a guy that is very interested and a little bit cashed up. And
always nice to have friends like that.
It's lovely. It's a guy that I've known for 30-odd years. So, and he's come on board on it. So we've now got all our advertising now goes through an advertising agent, and it's amazing that I now find out what I didn't know before. They're professionals, and all of a sudden we've got a lot more expertise. We can do things a lot smarter. In the 5 years that I tried to get the mini pallet off the ground, I probably wasted a lot more money trying to do it myself than what I did now, because everything we do now is done right. Correctly, even all our ads are right. We don't waste any money, and we're we think we're very professional in what we do in manufacturing, advertising, distribution, the whole works.
Brilliant. So where do the garden pallets sell, Peter?
Well, we sell them direct. We don't go through retailers because we feel as if we go direct, we can promote them in the right way. You can buy them on the web on www.gardenpallets, that's pallets.com.au, or 1300 19 44 54.
Brilliant. And when are you going to retire?
Well, I'm not, Laney. This is I'm at the age where I should have, and probably a couple of years ago. But this motivates me like you wouldn't believe. It'll be the last thing I ever invent.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that. Never say never.
Yeah, well, it's taken its toll, but it really motivates me that I'm very fortunate that I'm part owner of a print finishing company. And that gives me enough money to be able to develop this product. Any inventor who tries to do it alone and hasn't got a backup or income or a supporting wife or a partner behind them really is pushing it pretty hard. It's very difficult. It's a whole, I could probably talk for an hour of where I've been, where other inventors have been. Anybody that's invented a product, some of the barriers in front of them, it just takes a lot of time, and I wish that I could have talked to somebody like me today 5 years ago. I would have saved at least 3.5 years. Because
as well, if you can't actually get your product out in the marketplace and market it, it could be the best invention in the history of the world, but if no one knows about it, it never was.
Well, I gave a talk a little while ago. There's an inventors club in Adelaide, and they got in touch with me to come along and talk to people about inventions and what to do.
I didn't know that. What's it called?
I don't know. It was about 3 years ago.
Okay.
It's just a very small club, and somebody might ring up and tell you what it is. But I went along, and the product is very simple, so I thought, well, I can talk about that in 1 minute. And I thought I'd talk about where I've come from, where I think I'm going, and where I wanted to go. And I was meant to talk for about 20 minutes, and an hour and a quarter later I was still answering questions. And the very sad part about it was that some people there had invented the most magnificent products, but they didn't have the experience to take it any further. And one guy had one magnificent piece of equipment that should be sold all around the world in huge quantities. It never went any further because he never had the experience or the contacts to get it going. And it's a real shame. Any inventor out there would know inventing's the easy part, getting it on the market is the hard bit.
Yeah, that's true. Now, Peter is also going to be it's the Horticultural Pavilion at the Adelaide Show. Is that right, Peter?
Yeah.
So look out for him there. And Peter, I think you're an inspiration.
Thanks,
good
Laney.
on you, and good luck with these garden pallets, because it's a great idea. And, man, you're a South Aussie who's giving it a go. Yeah. It's really good.
Thanks, Laney.
Peter Kuhlmann and his garden pallets. That's www.gardenpallets.com.au.